up? What's up? Hopefully I'm not too loud. Coming in hot. But yeah, guys, what's up? Welcome to the Pod on the Go show. I'm your host, Raz. And today, we're going to be talking about production. Last week was crazy. So this week, I'm going to talk about production and how you can improve your podcast. Last week was crazy because they were working on my internet. I had another client that I was trying to help, and it just didn't work out this time. And yeah, it was just I got sick. My kid was sick. I was sick, but I'm back, baby. And I'm happy to be here, and I feel really good. And yeah, so this week we're talking about the production. I'm going to switch it up a little bit. The past few weeks I've been talking about kind of big picture things to think about when you're podcasting. Today I want to talk about more practical stuff with production. And it is podcasting 101. And the most important thing you can really do is prep. And that's whether you're a podcast host, a podcast producer, a podcast guest. A lot of people I meet think they can just wing it and it's going to sound great. And they might feel good and it might seem like it'll be good if you just wing it, but that doesn't work. Winging it doesn't work. It doesn't. Rare. Unless you're an expert in an industry already. Then you can wing it on a topic you know everything about already, but you can't wing it on something you don't know a lot about. So 9 times out of 10, winging it is a bad idea. So if you're a producer, if you produce your own podcast, or if you have a producer for your podcast, or if you are a producer, here are some things that can probably help you. Number one is you want to plan ample time to prep. If you are recording an hour-long show, you should be prepping 10, 15, maybe 30 minutes beforehand, maybe more, especially if you're going into an in-depth topic on one specific thing. For instance, I bring them up a lot. Let me see if I have a picture of them. I bring them up a lot, but this is the Great Charles Podcast, a podcast that I produce. You guys should check them out, leave them a review. But they do a lot of prep work. Each show, they talk about one of the biggest law trials in America ever with the attorney that tried the case. And one of the biggest pieces of praise they get from each attorney and each guest in the interview is that they knew the show better than they did. They knew the case as well as they did. The attorney, a lot of times, has gone on from the case. They haven't thought about it in a couple years, or maybe even a decade in some cases, or more. But they, the host, Steve and Yvonne, dive so deep into the case, and they read all the case materials and the case files, and they look at the depositions. They read everything, the openings, the closings, everything, the verdict. They read all of it. They go through it. They watch it. All the I forget what they call it. But anyway, the PowerPoints that they put together. I forget the actual word for it. They're gonna kill me if they listen to this. But I'm telling you, I could be an attorney now. So, but yeah, because I've listened to so many of the episodes. But what they do so great is the prep work. So that allows, because the attorney knows that they've done their research, it allows the attorney that's the guest to open up to the host a lot more. And that's the same thing that'll happen for you. If you are interviewing somebody who's going on a PR run and they are being interviewed by a ton of people, most people just wing it. Most people come in and ask stupid questions. They don't have a list. They say, hey man, I can ask, I'm about to interview Keanu Reeves and I know everything he's done. I've watched all his movies. But then they don't do any prep work and then they screw it up 9 times out of 10. Why? Because things happen. So if you're a producer, make sure you coach your guests, your hosts on this, okay? And your guests on it. Also, if you're a producer, scout the location beforehand. This is going to matter less if they're coming to your studio. And if you're looking for a studio, you can go to podonthego.com and find a studio near you. But this is going to matter less and less if you're coming to a studio that's already set up. All the producer has to do is turn on the lights and turn on the mics and turn on the cameras and hit record. And they already did the prep work, so that's not a big deal. But if you're a small producer and all you have is a small mic that you take everywhere with you, or what else do I have back here? Like a portable audio device like this, then yeah, you need to scout the location a little bit. You need to go there and make sure that no fans are going to be on. You need to make sure that if there's construction, is there a place you can go that's more quiet? Scout the location beforehand. Do a little bit of prep work. That way, when you get there, you don't have to, spend the first 15 to 20 minutes trying to find a more quiet spot, or, just say you can deal with it in post, because that always is the hardest thing to do. It's so much harder to fix things in post than to alleviate them in prep and pre-production. It's a lot easier to remove a sound in pre-production, if at all possible, than it is to remove a sound in post. Trust me. Okay, so plan to have your guests arrive early. This gives them time to ask questions of the host and of you. Have your host arrive even earlier so they can be there to greet the guests. All this stuff. So it's just, as a producer, these are things that you can coach people. You can coach your guests, your clients on, and then make it a system. If you have a client that likes to be, you should do this for every client. Count them down. Just count a short countdown from 5, and then let them know it's showtime. It's professional. There is a make sure that the lapel mic looks good on them. Make sure that they're not hitting the mic every time they talk. Make sure that all your batteries are charged. Just little things to make it professional. Let them know beforehand that if something happens, you might have to cut them off. This will be a sign to cut them off, or hold, or whatever give them hand signals to pay attention to as well, in case you need to fix something mid-show. So that's, pay attention to the show also, so that if you do have to stop for any reason, you can help them get back to where they were. And if you're a host or a guest, you also have to prep to make sure that your podcast is the best podcast humanly possible for your listening audience. So number 1, prepare your talking points. Have a short list of things you want to cover. It could be a call to action for the guest. It could be, questions, specific questions you want to make sure that you ask the guest that you thought about beforehand. You might not use all of them. You might use every single one of them, but it's always good to just have a list there so that you cover all the points. You never know if this podcast will go viral. You'll never know who's listening. So always make sure that you have your call to actions and your questions thought out beforehand. Things are going to change, so you want to be completely open to the conversation. It might go a completely different route than you never thought it would, but you always want to make sure that if you need to bring it back to the right track, you can. And sometimes trailing off on a unrelated topic is good. Sometimes it's fun, but sometimes it's bad. Like, that's not what people come to the show for. They come to the show to be inspired, to be educated, to be entertained. All the E's and the I. So that's what you want to make sure that your audience is getting out of it. So if you have a tendency to go down a rabbit hole on something unrelated, then work on that and make sure that you have a bulleted list. Something else is really practical for you as a guest, as a host, as a producer. If you're going to be a part of a production, be ready. Get some rest. Sleep in the night before. Don't go on a bender, they try to come in and be your best on a podcast. It's not going to happen. Hydrate. Drink water. Drink a bunch of water before the show. Don't get drunk. A lot of people do that too. They want a little sip of alcohol to calm them down, either before a podcast or before a speaking engagement. If they're speaking, don't do that. You don't need that. It'll always end up bad. You end up slurring words, or you start sweating, and it doesn't look good. Just water. That's it before you go up. Maybe coffee if that's your thing. And also just get the blood flowing. Stretches, jumping jacks, calisthenics, plyometrics, whatever it takes. Yoga, stretching, something. Just to get the blood flowing before the show starts. It'll help make sure that you're in the right place and that you're in the zone and that you can be your best. And why is all this important? Why is it important for the pre-production? Number 1 is professional. If you expect your podcast to grow in the future, then you want to present yourself as professional as possible. Everybody's going to change. Everybody's going to improve. Podcasts change all the time. So that's okay if it does, but you want to try and be as professional as possible. Do the countdown. Make sure you do all your checks. Check the audio, check the mics, even before I do this show now, I run through it 2 or 3 times. I've said this 2 or 3 times before I even hit the record button, just to make sure that I can, I'm not taking breaks or I'm not saying like and as many times as I used to. I still say it, and it's gonna happen. It's also, it makes the guest feel more comfortable by seeing a professional, well prepped, ready set. You don't want the guest to come in and then you get there after the guest, which I've done before on accident. There's nothing you can do sometimes, but you don't want to get there after the guest gets there and then not have everything set up and ready and running. And then I've been there a lot of times. Number one, as one person I can remember, got there like, I told them to get there 10 minutes early. They got there 15 to 20 minutes early and I wasn't there. And they tried to give me an attitude. So that doesn't count. You know what I'm saying? But 9 times out of 10, I get there a few minutes early. I have everything set up and I'm just waiting on the guests. So that presents it's just a level of professionalism that makes people feel comfortable. It's like the difference between going to Chick-fil-A and Wendy's. It's the difference. It's a difference there. You know what you're going to get in both places. You know what to expect. One place has a longer line for a reason. Okay. And the biggest thing, and this is the thing I want you to take away from this, as well as like warming up and being prepped. The biggest thing I want you to take away, like this is so important because it allows you to get in the zone and be on one accord with your guest and the host or with your subject matter. Even if you're not talking to anybody, being prepped and ready for the show allows you to really get in the zone. It allows your creativity to come out if you already have the fundamentals down. Okay. Pro athletes are the same way. And musicians, they've spent their entire life practicing the basics. Musicians especially, practicing the basics. If it's a musician, they know every scale there is. They can play it forwards and backwards, arpeggios, whatever. And in a jazz scale and a flat, they can do all that stuff without even thinking about it. They can do it in their sleep. So that allows their creativity to come out and create something that's special, that's unique to them. That now they can take their life experience. Now they can take the pain, the sadness, the hurt, the joy they're feeling and add it to a song that's fundamentally sound and create something that's beautiful and amazing and impactful to everybody else. Same thing with podcasting. If you're prepped and you have the fundamentals down and you have the basics already laid out in practice, now you could jump from topic to topic in a podcast and it adds to it. Instead of it seeming like you're just going down a rabbit hole, now you're adding to the podcast because you can bring your own creativity, your own personality into it because you know the fundamentals. You know the questions you're going to ask. You know the story you want to try and tell. You know the narrative you want to showcase. So now you can add your own experience to that narrative. And the guests will love you for it. The listeners will love you for it. Everything. So that's it for today. Please, I hope you take that away from it. Oh, one more thing. Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. Abraham Lincoln. Great man. All right, guys, go out there and prep for your next show. Prepare for your show next week. And I hope your podcast prospers. If you want to find a studio near you, you can go to podonthego.com and you can search for a studio. If you want to watch and listen to all the archives of the show, go check out the podcast, Pod on the Go podcast. Just search for Pod on the Go. Yeah, appreciate you guys. I'm Raz, host of Pod on the Go, host of the Pod on the Go show, and owner of Pod on the Go. I'll talk to you next time. Peace out.